Hi there, this is Sarah from Sarah's Hand Embroidery. In this video, I will show you how to embroider a house in springtime. This is a mixed media project, so I will be starting by using colors to tint my fabric to create the background. Don't worry if you're not used to painting on fabric, this is a fairly easy task. I'm using watercolor cakes to dab my fabric with color. First, wash the fabric with plain water using a brush. This allows the fabric to soak the dabs of color and diffuse it nicely. Don't over-soak the fabric, but just brush over it just enough to be able to see that it is wet. Once that is done, dip the tip of your brush in red or pink color and touch it on the fabric. Do not paint, but just touch the tip. Since I'm using regular watercolors, I will need more touching to make the color darker or visible. If you want to use this technique on a fabric that will go into washing, then please use fabric or acrylic color. The tone of fabric and acrylic colors might be sharper, so dilute it slightly in water before you use it over the fabric. Anyway, I will suggest that you always test out your colors on a piece of scrap fabric first. Now, if you are not a fan of paints, try using the wax crayons instead. If you are using wax crayons, you want to make sure that they stay on the fabric. So use a piece of butter paper to place over the project after painting it with crayons, and use a warm iron and dab over it. The wax in the crayon will melt onto the fabric and it will withstand gentle washing with cold water. Now, if you're not willing to use any sort of colors, don't worry, do not use any colors. This project will look as beautiful and minimalistic without the background paints. However, it is always nice to try out something that is a little different than the usual for the sake of experience. So I use red, which turns into pink for the sakura tree, green for the ground, black, which has turned into gray on the walls, and a bit of blue for the sky. I leave the paint to dry. Once dried, you will see that the paint has lost its vibrance. That's how it is, and that is what we want, just a subdued hint of colors on the background. I chose the outline stitch to work the outlines of all the elements in this project. Use black or dark gray shades. Also, this project gives out a delicate look, so I use just one strand of the embroidery floss. For those of you who have been following my tutorials and website, you probably might know that I rarely use one strand of embroidery floss. Use tiny stitches to work on the outlines. Remember, when doing the outline stitch, keep the thread to the top of the stitch line or the right side if you are stitching from the top to bottom. Links to all the stitches used in this project are given in the description. So in case you find it difficult to follow what I'm showing here, please check them out. Since this is a stitch along video, I will be keeping the video rolling. Speeding up now and then or pausing to change the direction of the embroidery hoop. You can feel free to jump to the next element using the timestamps in the description. I'm done with the landscape. Now, let me use the same outline stitch to work the walls. I just thought making a house with a sakura tree would just... This is the 4th video in the hand embroidered houses series, and I thought, doing a house with a sakura tree will represent spring very nicely. Now let's work the windows using the weave stitch. I make all the vertical stitches first. Then I weave the horizontal stitches between them. Again, I use only one strand of the embroidery floss. The little imperfections are okay in this project as it adds to its charm. Let's finish the rest of the windows too. I'll speed up the video a bit. Okay, so all our outlines are done. Now let's add some texture. It is spring. We need some green grass. Use the straight stitch to make a few blades closer to the house. I make a few straight stitches in one direction. I make some of them longer than the others. And once I finish with one direction, I make a few angle stitches to fill up the gaps between the earlier stitches in my return journey. Now the sakura tree. As you see, I have already worked a few French knots to add texture. Using 2 strands of the embroidery floss, I randomly scatter around French knots. Make more flowers on the tips of the branches. Okay, I'll speed up the video a bit. If you want to know how to make the French knots, check out my 2 minutes video. I will provide a link to it in the description. I then move to make a few French knots on the grass too, so that they look like flowers. I try not to use another color so as to keep the entire project looking simpler. My tree is done. You might notice that I have added more knots to make it fuller. Voila! The pattern is done. I hope you like this project. Please let me know if you have by commenting and liking it. It will be very encouraging for me. Also, if you want to support me in making more videos and receive this pattern, become my patron. The link to my Patreon account is in the description. Thank you so much for watching.